if you try to write a really great song, it's that weight of expectation or that pressure kind of kills the creativity. It may be, in a way.
Sometimes you write a really good song and then you think, am I ever going to write another good song like this? What if that's the best one and that was it? There's nothing more to come.
That thought right there is really one of the reasons I think I hesitated to get into music, because I felt like, oh, well, what if I run out, you know? So I was about a week into learning. So just learned the E chord, the A, the D, whatever. Still getting the fingers right. And I had this dream. I was asleep. I had this dream, and it was like I heard this amazing sound that I'd never heard before. And it woke me up, and I was like, "Wow, what was that?" And I was like, I felt so. It was the middle of the night, and I just felt inspired and motivated. I got up, and I couldn't write that song because I didn't know enough of guitar. But I started writing lyrics. So I just put down 2 pages of lyrics, just kind of, and it just started flowing that way naturally. And I never really thought I could. I knew I could write because I'd written, you know, some articles before, and so I'd had a lot of kind of writing experience, but I'd never tried to write lyrics. Never really thought I could. So this was kind of a bit eye-opening for me, and so it just went from there, really, you know. And like learning the guitar, my songwriting went along like in parallel with learning the actual guitar. The more I learned on the guitar, the more songs I could write, you know. So it was like, it was an obsession. Like I try to lead with an uplifting message, but talking about the pain or the struggle from a better place, that's really how I approach it mostly, you know. Yeah. Rather than being, you know, steeped in misery. Good vibes show. So good vibes show.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Good Vibes Show. I'm here with Darragh from Pyrolite. He is an artist and a singer-songwriter from the island. We're going to be having a chat today about music, about songwriting, about his awesome music, his new album. Thank you so much for joining us, Darragh.
Thanks, Marie. Thanks for having me.
No worries. I love your background.
Right.
Is that are you in the metaverse?
Yeah, great. Could be most of the time anyway.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
It's just a bit of it's just black duct tape actually on the walls, because I was just experimenting with some like home recordings.
Yeah.
Some of my music, so I thought it was pretty cool.
Oh, I like it. It's awesome. You could probably sell that as part of your merch. Wallpaper.
Yeah, great. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, it looks really good.
Good idea.
Yeah, so look, I was really I was loving listening to your music this week. And discovering your music, it really reminds me of The Jam, which is one of my favorite bands. I definitely, like, as soon as I listened to your music today, I had to go on Spotify and just listen to The Jam because it reminded me of it. And that was one of my favorite bands. Yeah, that's a great sound to be like, I think. Obviously you've got a lot of like meaning in your songs, so hopefully we can talk about some of those things in the interview today.
Yeah.
And
of course,
maybe we can just start with like how you got into music, like, you know, what made you start on that journey of being a songwriter and making your own music.
Yeah. So I come from a sort of, well, my family is a little bit musical. My mother, anyway, she's a music teacher. She's big into the piano, and she really had hopes for me as a kid to be a pianist. And you know, so I played piano up to like grade 2, but I never liked it. I was always kicking and screaming. I wanted to get outside and play. You know, it was one of those things. I had no patience for it. So I quit, basically. My dad's not musical, so you know, he was kind of on my side. He was like, "Look, if you don't want to do it, don't do it." But one thing I realized that did give me a sort of an ear for music. You know, later on. So I didn't play any music until high school. Played a bit of guitar, And my girlfriend at the time I played guitar for her one day, and she just had no interest in it. So, so I basically quit again, you know, which was a bit of a shame.
Oh.
Should have dropped her. But I dropped the guitar instead, and never picked it up for many years. No, I always loved music. Like I was in college in the 90s, and which was a great decade for music, you know. So it was kind of the birth of techno and EDM and all that. So I loved that. So I took a detour into that sort of world. My friend was a DJ, so I was always just listening to music. And then Oasis, of course, came on the scene, which was for me life changing, you know. So it got people back into bands and that sort of thing in the 90s. Which was great. Well, once again, as much as I love music, and so it was Oasis, the Stone Roses, and bands like that, and then the Verve came along. As much as I loved all that, I never considered playing it. You know, I was. It was many years later. 5 years ago, I picked up the guitar. So a friend had loaned me her guitar. I was really bored one weekend. And I said, oh, I'm just going to give that a go, because I always thought I could remember something from what I played before.
Yeah.
I picked it up, and I knew nothing. Everything was completely gone. I was like, oh, that's not right. So I had to kind of relearn everything. It was like totally baby steps. But I found this time around learning it was an awful lot easier than, you know, in the past, because you've got YouTube, of course, and you can just find all the lessons you want online. And any song you want to play is right there, you know, it's just broken down for you. So that was great. So I started learning a few chords. And then all of a sudden, it actually happened when I was, so I was about a week into learning. So just learned the E chord, the A, the D, whatever. Still getting the fingers right. And I had this dream. I was asleep, I had this dream, and it was like, I heard this amazing sound that I'd never heard before. It woke me up, and I was like, wow, what was that? And I was like, I felt so, it was the middle of the night, and I just felt inspired and motivated. I got up, and I couldn't write that song because I didn't know enough of guitar, but I started writing lyrics. So I just put down 2 pages of lyrics, just kind of, and it just started flowing that way naturally. And I never really thought I knew I could write because I'd written, you know, some articles before, and so I'd had a lot of kind of writing experience, but I never tried to write lyrics. Never really thought I could. So this was kind of a bit eye-opening for me, and so it just went from there, really, you know. And like learning the guitar, my songwriting went along like in parallel with learning the actual guitar. The more I learned on the guitar, the more songs I could write, you know. So it was like, it was an obsession at that time. Wow. Just pouring my heart and soul onto the page, and coming. Anytime I would try to learn, you know, it would be a song I said, I'd like to learn that song. So I'd be trying to learn a song. And before I learned it, I'd have this idea for my own song, and I would just go on a complete, not on a tangent, but I would just go, you know, hell for leather at that. And it would turn out I never learned the song that I intended to learn. So I didn't learn a lot of covers in the beginning. I learned a few, but it was just to get my guitar skills up. And as soon as I did, I mean, because you don't need to be you don't need to be an extremely talented musician to write songs, you know. You just kind of need the basics. You know, the basic chords, and but you do need to be able to assemble them, obviously. And the same goes for lyrics, I guess. But you know, that comes with practice as well. It does help to learn power chords. I found for the music I write, I really had to learn power chords, which I struggled with in the beginning. But once I got that, it just kind of opened up a new avenue, really, for what I could write. So I tended to write for the first couple of years. Once I learned how to play power chords, I tended to write almost exclusively with that, which is, you know, when I got that old guitar I started on that a friend had loaned me, I upgraded. I bought my own guitar, And then very shortly after that, I bought an electric guitar, and just a secondhand guitar and a little secondhand amp. Got it really cheap. And the second I plugged it in and strummed it, I was just like blown away. I was like, wow, like
Yeah.
where has this been all my life? It was life changing. Just that sound.
Yeah.
So I became kind of obsessed with the electric guitar. So at one time I had like 5 guitars. Got rid of it. I've just kept the ones I really like now.
You could never have too many guitars.
True. Yeah, that's true. So yeah, that's really it in a nutshell. It was something else I was going to add there, but forgotten. Yeah, so
that's amazing. Like, obviously, your subconscious was mulling that stuff around for all that time, probably since your girlfriend ditched the guitar in your life.
Yeah.
And it's like something had been brewing all that time, to the point where you had been like, as soon as you started to play, like, it had activated that desire that was probably in you that you might not have even realized all that time.
Right. Yeah.
And the dream had just popped, because a lot of things in psychology, they think that dreams are like you processing your life.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what it seemed like. And it was just like, as soon as I started learning the guitar, just activated. So there obviously was a lot of content stored in there, because I had no trouble writing songs, at least in the beginning. I mean, maybe it's all down now, but and I hadn't written for, like, there was just like pretty much 3 or 4 years, pretty much flat out writing songs. And then it's just been on a bit of a pause, because I was working really hard since the start of the year up until quite recently. So music just kind of took a back seat, which was a bit disappointing. But at the time, I was just so drained that I'd lost a bit of the passion. So kind of slow. So I hadn't written for. You do need at least some sort of spark or inspiration to write. I find. So I hadn't written for a while. And now I'm slowly getting back into it. And then just recently, I've written another 2 songs, which I'm really pleased with. So it's like, well, I feel like I haven't lost it anyway.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like if you can turn it on like that, boom, out of nowhere. Like, if you stop for a few months, that's nothing compared to all those years between you learning the piano to now to then. Like,
true.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I get what you mean. It can be very, I don't know. Sometimes you write a really good song and then you think, am I ever going to write another good song like this? Like, is that the best I've got? A lot of people worry about that. Like, is that the best? What if that's the best one and that was it? There's nothing more to come from that,
Sure. Sure. And that's kind of that thought right there is really one of the reasons I think I hesitated to get into music, because I felt like, oh, well, what if I run out? I mean, I think we all know, we've all seen before, bands that we love come out with a couple of great albums, and then the next one they put out is a clanger, and it's just like, oh, it's so disappointing,
Yeah.
But I guess maybe that was audience expectation part of it as well. So maybe it's kind of the expectation. If you try to write a really great song, it's that weight of expectation or that pressure kind of kills the creativity. It maybe, in a way. Like, what my favorite band in the 90s was Oasis. I think a couple of things destroyed that band in the end. It didn't help that the brothers were always fighting. They also did a lot of drugs, but I think it was also the industry that there was so much pressure put on them to perform and to write this great music, that after the second album, for me, everything after that was kind of disappointing, So I think artists will always kind of have that struggle with that, maybe fear about continuing to write something that they're happy with and that their audience likes. So I guess it's up to us to maybe get over that fear and pressure.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's so many factors in there, and I think I'd rather have that as a problem than not being successful. I'd rather get successful and then have to deal with the success problem than just be like, well, at least I'm writing good songs and I'm still struggling.
Right.
Like,
Well, be
album,
careful
but
what
I'm
you
still
wish for,
struggling.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah.
Because I think sometimes it's the hardship that you go through that makes you write a good song. And certainly it connects with other people that are going through a hardship. Like there's not that many people that are millionaires. So if you write about how great life is now that I've made it, like your audience is very tiny, right? To meet people where they're at. And so, I mean, some songs are about finding love, or they're about finding like something that connects with that innate human connection that we all have. And I get, I'm only guessing, but when people get to a certain level of life, that they're not having to worry about how am I going to get money to pay my electricity bill. Like I listen to a lot of like Tracy Chapman, or Jewel was a popular person I used to listen to. And, you know, like there's something that comes from living in your car for being homeless. Like both of those people struggle with those issues.
Totally.
And that produces great songs. And then what happens after that? Maybe they did run out of ideas to keep going, you know, for a period of time, you know.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, like, I don't know if you noticed that. There's a lot of hardship and pain gone into the background, into my songs. And I don't want to write coming from a place of pain, really. I don't want to inflict that on my listeners, on my audience. But it tells a story, and it brings character into your songwriting, definitely. Like I try to lead with an uplifting message, but talking about the pain or the struggle from a better place, that's really how I approach it mostly, you know. Rather than being, you know, steeped in misery. My friend had a good quote. He said, there's a lot of Irish singer-songwriters out there. He's a Spanish guy, and says there's a lot of Irish singer-songwriters out there, but they're all singing the same song about how depressed they are. You know, I don't know if that's true, but it's not always true. But to your point, it's also like Noel Gallagher put it perfectly. Noel Gallagher from Oasis put it perfectly, that like he's struggling now to write the way he used to, because he was going through the struggle in his earlier life, you know. So he had plenty of content and plenty of things to write up great music with, but he's struggling now because he's made it. You know, he's a multimillionaire, and you know he's got a family and kids. So he feels like, well, he said that he's struggling kind of, you know, for the content.
Yeah. And when you write a song like out of that place of like both the pain and the positivity, both the pain and the coming through it, like what does it do for you personally, having written a song after something like that?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's really cathartic. I mean, I think that's particularly in the early days, I think I was using this. It was just pouring out of me. You know, the lyrics and the songs, and you know, it was a great way of purging, you know, whatever you felt, getting it out on the. It's just a great way to express yourself, really. You know, because no one's going to listen to you if you get up on stage and talk about how hard your life is, you know. But if you can make a song out of it, the audiences are very open, you know, to what they'll listen to, you know, in terms of lyrics. Or you can say things through music that you can't necessarily say, or you wouldn't want to say, you wouldn't really want to say, but if you make a great song or a great hook out of it, people are going to listen, and they're not listening. A lot of the times they're not listening too much. You know, if they're enjoying the song, you know, lyrics can affect people, absolutely. But sometimes it's more, it's more the music and the hook as opposed to the actual lyrics. So, it could be both.
I think with your music, it's very upbeat. In general, like it catches you into, like, you want to sing along to it, or it's a vibey sort of vibe.
Right.
And then like sometimes they're the best songs to talk about what's really happening, because you're in that vibe, and then you're like, hang on a minute, what's this actually saying? Like, oh,
right.
Okay, there's actually some hardship here, and I'm kind of like vibing into it, and then it's like, oh,
right.
Like, I think those are good songs, right? Like I tend to write more melancholy songs that are just like, this is, if you weren't depressed before, you will you will be at the end of this. No, they're not like that. Yeah. But I have had quite a few people contact me about my song saying, I was going through such a bad loss or hardship, and that wasn't what I was intending to necessarily, like, the level of loss that they'd experienced wasn't what I was necessarily even writing about.
Right.
I had someone that texted me after I'd started putting some songs out and said, could I use your song at my son's funeral? And he's just passed away. And it was so sad. And like, the story was heartbreaking. Yeah. And, they like, music has that way of connecting with, like, different music's going to connect with different people, because some people wouldn't listen to that emotive kind of stuff, but they might actually, like, a very good friend of mine said to me once, he said, Marie, what music's purpose is in the world is to allow people to feel something.
Right?
And some people really can't even feel anything, and they need music to allow them to feel it. And like, some people they need something really angsty, like playing like intensely, and that then allows them to feel something, and they wouldn't otherwise be able to connect with their emotions.
Right. Yeah. Sure. I mean, that's probably the most powerful thing about music, So obviously there's music for different occasions, and like, if you are sad, you probably want to hear a sad song, and maybe you're going to resonate with that, and feeling it is the most important thing. If you are in that sad space, and I think when we hear lyrics that resonate with us, we don't feel so alone. We're like, oh, well, like, I'm not the only one that's going through this, and I think that's why it means so much to people, when they and then they some people will contact you. It hasn't happened to me yet, but like, you hear stories about people that songwriters, when they hear their fans saying that music or that song changed my life. I've had songs that have changed my life, whether it's expressing a feeling or explaining something that you're going through, that you're confused about, or that you need some help with, and someone's gone through it and has come out the other end, so it's pretty powerful. But what I tend to write, what I enjoy the most is writing, like what you said, vibey. I aim to write upbeat rock songs, and just for the energy, and I enjoy that intensity, and to raise the vibe, basically. Now, not to say that I don't appreciate, or I don't write the sadder songs or slower songs, but I do like energetic songs, that's what I tend to aim for.
Cool. And is there a particular kind of I guess style that you try to go for in the instrumentation to kind of convey that vibey mood? Like, is there something that, because I'm not sure if you if you play all the instruments on those things, like, are you playing the guitar on those tracks?
I'm playing the rhythm guitar.
Yep.
I'm actually playing most and the lead guitar as well. I mean, I'm not really a lead guitarist, but I can play a few things, if it's not too complicated. But the tracks, usually I will write the drums and write the bass, and so I use Band in a Box for that. I don't know if you've heard about that program. So I just program the drums and the bass.
Yeah, cool.
And that'll Yeah, so the bass just mirrors what I'm doing on the rhythm guitar. It's, the same
Yeah,
chords.
cool.
But it just gives it that when you add the bass, it just gives it a much more rounded. It just sounds like a more completed song.
Yeah.
So once you've got the drum track, the bass track, then I can play over using the rhythm guitar and then my vocals, and that basically is the kind of the band sound that I'm going for. And then in the studio, and then I'll put a lead line over it, and hopefully it comes out okay.
Yeah.
That's what I did with the songs on the album.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's so great that you can do all this stuff like almost all yourself, isn't it? Like you can learn how to do like there's so many cool tools that you can use. Like I feel like my story might be a little bit similar to yours because I wasn't really that into music. I learned it when I was a kid. I wasn't gonna I learned violin when I was 4. I did music at high school as a music scholarship, but then when I finished it, I hated it because I was like, I hated the non-creative part of it. It ruined my. I had no passion for it at that point, right? I just was like,
is it like rules and structures and the theory and that sort of thing?
Yeah. So the pressure of having to perform in front of people. I just really struggled with learning how to read music because when I did violin, I was learning a method called the Suzuki method. I don't know if you've heard of that, but it's like learning to play by ear. And I never learned how to read music like properly until I was in high school. It was just a struggle. Like it was because you're always in competition with other people, and
of course,
when you're at a music school, like it was very competitive, and I didn't like that. And but at that time, I remember I would write little songs in my bedroom, like, "Oh, I love Johnny. Why doesn't he love me back?" or some stupid song like that. There wasn't any substance in my life to write a decent song about. Like they would have, if I'd have gotten into music then, it would have been like Justin Bieber on steroids or something. Like some, not that Justin Bieber isn't a great artist, he is, but the songs when you're younger, there's no substance there. I don't think.
Right.
You have to be pretty special to have a substance because you haven't gone through anything. You haven't gone through a hardship. Or what you think is a hardship is nothing, really, right? Unless you have gone through a hardship as a young age. But then when I was older, I just decided, I'm just going to do this now, and I don't need to wait for anyone to tell me that I can because you sort of think, someone's going to knock on the door and make my dreams come true. Well, they're not. You have to do it yourself. That's what you're going to do.
Right on. Right on. Yeah.
And I wasn't saying that out loud or anything, but I think in my mind I was thinking, if I'm supposed to be doing music, it'll just kind of happen. But it's like, no, it won't just happen. I was very busy with my other businesses and my shop and all this other stuff I was doing. And there was no time to do music unless I stopped and made the time to do it. And that's kind of how I got into it. And then I met a producer that's helped me do all this stuff that I had no idea how to do. I didn't even know you could do all that stuff. Like, but it's amazing. Like, you can sit there for hours and learn how to do it yourself on YouTube's. And I tried all that myself, but it's frustrating. And then I was like, you know what? I can just pay someone else to do this. And it's actually amazing when you can find another muso who's really good at it, and they bring what they're really good at, and you bring what you're really good at, and then suddenly the song that you just thought up in your head is like, oh, this is amazing. This song sounds so cool. I love that.
Great. Yeah.
And it's great that you can use the band in the box. Like I'm surprised what you can do on Logic's drummer. Like it's like, what the hell? Have you ever seen that?
No, I need to check that out because the software I use is adequate. I've just it's not as I want something more. Something that allows me a bit more creativity. So that sounds like a good recommendation. I'm gonna have to check that out.
Well, I'm surprised. Like, I've used it. I started off with GarageBand because that's what comes free on Apple. And then I was bringing my little songs that I would make on GarageBand into the studio, and the producer that I uses Logic. And it's because it's like GarageBand is like a free version of Logic without all the bells and whistles. Right. But it's very similar. Like, and there's lots of stuff you can do even on GarageBand for free if you've got an iPad or a Mac. and you can then get started, and then like you can take it to a studio and they can import that same file into Logic, and it all just can go on steroids from there.
Yeah, sounds great. Well, just to get back to what you were saying, like I didn't do music in school.
Okay.
And I didn't go to music school or music classes. But I can understand really when you're forced to learn music theory, and it must be good on some level, but I can understand how that might kill the creativity, because you're learning all these rules all the time. And like I did do a songwriting class a few years ago, and there was somebody who had done it all in terms of learning the theory, gone to music college and all the rest. But I think out of all of us, she was the one that struggled the most in terms of coming up with something, with that creative juice, because I find when I write, I feel completely free.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about, does this chord go with that chord? No, I just try to think, well, what comes next? What comes next? And I'll almost try anything. And then I'll I'll put it all together, and then I'll sit back and say, well, is this working? And 9 times out of 10, it's working. So I think we got to be free when we create. The more freedom you and creativity you bring to it, the more you're going to come up with something special, hopefully.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like that feeling of freedom, and that expression where you're just like, sometimes I'm just like, wow, this is like, it's almost like it was all swirling around in your head, and you could write a song, but it hasn't come out. And then when it suddenly comes out, you're like, oh wow, like I made this. Like,
right.
Yeah, like something.
Yeah.
You feel good from doing that, but
it's great.
It's not to be bound by any weird rules or like. Yeah, I think sometimes when I was writing some of my songs, I'm not a guitarist either. Like I just learned it by chord charts and strumming, and I'm terrible at playing the guitar. But I just do it to write the songs, and sometimes do it on a live stream or something like that, acoustic, or I might do little acoustic gigs and stuff, and I can get by, but I'm not like I don't play guitar on my albums or anything.
All right, yeah.
And anyway, one of the things I don't know, like, because I only know a few chords, I was stuck in that rut of these are all the same chords, right? They're the only ones I know.
Yeah.
And then I was like, one day I just Googled like chords that go together.
Right.
You just find these weird things, and like I know other people, they're like, oh, they would never think of doing that, right? But you're just like, there's a website you can go to called chordsthatgotogether.com. You can find some combinations, right? Like just weird ideas that other people might not come up with because they already know what chords would go together, but you're kind of like, this might give you something weird that you've never thought of before.
Yes, totally. Yeah. I mean, to a certain extent, I probably, have repeated a lot of the same chord combinations, but no song I've written is like another one. Like they're all. I feel like anyway that they're all pretty much unique anyway. Hopefully, but if you do get stuck, that's a great tool.
Yep.
To use.
That's for free.
Yeah.
What other things do you use? Do you have any little tips or tricks?
Yeah. So I've never really, luckily, I haven't really struggled in terms of for inspiration or for writing a song. I've taken different approaches. I've used different ways. Like so sometimes I'll start with a beat. Just listen to a drum beat. I'll set it at 1, 4, 5 or even faster BPMs, and and that sometimes triggers something, and I'll put a few chords down. Sometimes I'll start with the chords and put down a melody, and sometimes the best ones I write are starting with a hook, you know, which is like lyrics,
Okay.
without any music. So I'll have a particular line that I think would make a good hook, and then I sort of just build around that. So that's often how it goes. I've usually had an idea come to me pretty quickly. So, like I said, I'm kind of lucky in that I've never got totally stuck for music. But if I am really stuck, I'll put on Spotify for an hour or two, and I'll put it on on radio, and in any genre. Well, not any genre, but you know, it'll be usually like rock or even pop, you know, sometimes, and then just listen to a ton of stuff, and obviously not plagiarize, but you get different idea. You can choose different ideas from different songs, and
Yep.
you might hear something that you like, but you think, oh, what if it goes like this, you know, and then modify what you hear, and then just try and put it all together. And sometimes that'll kickstart my brain. But usually, if someone, you know, if it were the case that someone put a gun to my head and forced me to sit down and write a song, I've sort of put myself in that position that, okay, now I want to write a song with a completely blank canvas.
Yeah.
I've usually come up with something that turns into something, you know. So I feel I'm kind of fortunate that way, that I've never really gotten stuck as yet. Touch wood, you know.
Yeah.
So,
I think it's got to do with how you feel about that whole issue. Like if you think you need blah, blah, blah to be in the mood and all this, you will need all that. But if you think you can just, it's inside you and I am a songwriter, so therefore I can write songs, or therefore I write songs because I'm a songwriter. It's something that I can do. And if I really have to, it might not be the best song or the most inspired song, but you could do one on command.
Right.
That's how I feel about it. Like you could do it.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah, of course. Like, I mean, I know I can because I've done it, you know.
Yeah.
And that's developed over time, you know.
Yeah.
So happy days. So I guess it's just about hanging on to that, you know.
Yeah.
And
the other thing I remind myself sometimes is, well, you've written some great songs, so therefore there's more great songs in there. Like there are great, because you've done a good song, that means you can write more good songs, or that means you can write a good song. So why would you just only write one good song? Like, there's got to be, you know, because I think sometimes also it's how people receive that song. Like I've written some songs I think, oh, this is really great, people are going to love this, and they haven't loved it as much as a different song.
Okay.
And you're just thinking, what's the difference? Like, wouldn't you just, this one's so good too, and you can't write more of the exact same thing because you don't want it to be a cookie cutter situation. But look, I have found that there's one song that I've done that people seem to love a lot more than the other songs.
Okay.
And I'm constantly trying to work out, why do they love that song more than the other song?
Why?
Yeah.
I wonder.
It's strange. Yeah.
It is strange. Yeah. I guess you can't really anticipate, you know, the audience reaction. Well, I guess the point is keep writing great songs, you know.
Yeah.
You know, whatever you want to write, and if it sounds good to you, like it's good enough. That's sort of how I feel about it at this point.
And I think ultimately, I heard someone else say this once, that they were like, well, the songs I write are for me. Right. And sometimes I listen to my own songs because I'm like, I wrote that song because I wanted to hear that song.
Right.
And it doesn't bother me to hear myself. I put my own self on my own Spotify. Like, like, why not? I'm like, oh, that's a fucking great song.
Totally.
It doesn't bother me that it's me singing it.
Well, that's the best. That's probably the best part, you know. If you can listen to a song that you've done and professionally, you know, produced.
Yeah.
Like I'll put my album on in the car.
Yeah.
Because I think it's a great album, and I hadn't listened to it since it came out, you know, or since I did it at least. And I'll just put it on driving, and I'm like, I'll just drive around Dublin listening to the album. Like, I get a kick out of it. I think it's brilliant. Yeah. To hear something that you started with writing on a page, you know, and now it's blasting out of your speakers, you know, and it's done. I mean, I feel the album I did, I'm really happy with it, and it's done to a pretty professional standard, and to hear something like that, you know, that you've written, you know, it's incredible. It's very satisfying.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it?
But you're right, like what you said. I wrote that song because I wanted to hear that song. And look, if you're the only one that hears it, then that's probably good enough. But hopefully we want a bit more. But you know, it's
a very expensive way of getting that self gratification.
Right? Yeah. Absolutely.
You're like, I just spent $1,000 to get this song so I could hear it. You know. Oh,
yeah.
Right, like. Show some other people.
But you know, maybe, but that keeps the passion alive when we're listening to something that we've written and we still enjoy it. You know. Hopefully that'll keep the passion alive, and we go on to write something else, and then, you know, like you said, if you have written one great song, then you can write more, you know, because like I've like I said, the music for me on the last couple of months has been I've been on a hiatus, and I've sort of felt, oh God, how am I going to write another song, or is it gone, you know? I felt like, oh, is it gone? And I tried to write something, and I was getting somewhere, but there was nothing that it was like I sort of partially written a few songs, and I thought, there's something there, but I didn't feel like I wanted to finish anything, you know. There was a few ideas, and I was like, I was starting to worry, actually, had I lost it. And then I looked back over some of the recent stuff I had done, and I was like, some of the later songs I'd written, I think are great, as good as anything I've written. So I'm like, well, nothing's gone. You just have to go and find it, you know?
Yeah.
So it's still in there, as you know, as songwriters, we've got something, you know, that not everybody can write a song, you know, or maybe everybody can write a song, but who's got the passion to do it? Who's got the motivation? I suppose.
When you feel like you can't write a song, what do you do? Like, if you, like, let's say you're going through that process, so there's certain things where you think, oh, if I go for a walk, or I do this, or I'll do some journaling, or is there anything you do to get yourself in the mood or try to get the songwriting process going?
That's a great question. There is something I do. And journaling is great, actually. I've never really used it so much for songwriting, but I think, honestly, it would be great if you do have that, you know, writer's block or whatever. I think journaling would be a great way to get over that. And if you, someone recommended, like, mind dumping on the page, like you get up first thing in the morning and you just start writing.
Okay.
I've never actually tried that technique, but I think it could get things moving for you. But what I do, and this has happened in the past. So there's a park near me, very famous park, Phoenix Park it's called, and it's this massive park just outside Dublin. So I'll take the bike up there and get into nature.
Yep.
And I'll usually come up with something when I'll you know, I don't go there with the intention of writing a song, but I'll go out there with the intention of clearing my head, and walk around a bit, and you know, hug a few trees, that sort of thing, and all these ideas usually just come to me, and then I'll just come home and I'll just start writing, and so that really does help me, actually. Surprisingly. So, but that's a good technique I use.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of people find exercise in some form is good, or the nature, or both of those things.
Right. Yeah. Both. Yeah. Even better. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. So I have this weird thing that's happened to me recently in the last year or so, where, like, every song I've done, I've written the night before I've booked the studio appointment to work on a song.
Oh, right. Okay.
Usually the night before, or sometimes if I'm lucky, the second of the night before. But I'm just like, it's like the pressure is just, I'm like, I don't know whether I'm just like procrastinate in the way I'm a busy person. I've got lots going on all the time. But then I'm like, oh, I better write this song. And I have a lot of ways where if something comes to me, I'll jot it down. Like, so I might have a little recorder in my phone, and I might have an idea for a song, which I don't know why. Also, this happens to me a lot, where I'll be going to go out the door for an appointment that I have to go for, and a fucking song is in my head to write. And you're like, okay, but I'm going to be late. Like, I need to, like, you're like, okay, so if I quickly sit down with my guitar, because I have to sit down with my guitar usually, and I just strum something, maybe I'll sing it out and I'll quickly record that and I'll just leave it there. And then I can come back to that later and make that into a song. But if I capture that initial idea, it's like it just disappears.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to get it to a point where you can pick it up from again, you know? So whether it's just strumming the chords and getting the vocals down, you know, that, you know, and sometimes that can take just a few minutes. But once you record that, at least you've something to go back to. You haven't lost the idea. Like, and it's heartbreaking when, like, this doesn't always happen, but it's happened a few times. Like when I wake up with an idea in my head and I'm too tired to get out of bed. So I said, I'll remember it in the morning. And I fall asleep again and it's gone forever. You know, that'll never come back.
So, and it's gone, right? And it is heartbreaking because you're like, oh no, I should have written that down at the time. Like,
that was such a good song. Yeah.
Can I remember?
That was the number one
to remember, but I can't remember what I was supposed to remember.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then so for now, like when I get a song, if I can just record it down, take a minute and put it down, then I come back to it when I have time. But if it's something that I feel like I really want to write, I'll get the lyrics finished. I'll get the chord, the song structure, the arrangement. I'll do the drums, the bass, and then I'll record it. I usually record playing the drums and bass on the speaker and it's the amp, and do the guitar over it. Just record it on the phone.
Yeah.
Just use the phone. It works out really well. And then I'll do the vocals separately, and then I'll just mix them together, and then the song's done, basically. It's at a level where I know exactly what the song is, so I can come back to it later if I want to go to the studio, you know?
Yep. Yeah, you got all the ideas there. Yep.
You know, everything's there, yeah, basically.
Yep.
Yeah. So once that's done, I feel like that's tied up, it's done, I can move on. And that was a question actually that comes up. I used to copyright all my songs in the beginning. And so I would use just an online copyrighted thing, Protect My Work it's called. And I'd send everything there, and it's quite cheap to do. But I haven't done that for a while. Is that something you worry about?
Well, copyright's implied the minute you make something. So the minute, even if we're talking about something now and I start giving an idea, copyright is legally implied the minute you verbalize that idea or you put that into existence, because of copyright law, right? I remember the days where people used to say that, oh, you need to record it on a cassette tape. Remember that? And you'd have to post it back to yourself and not open the envelope. Did you ever hear that story?
No, I didn't know.
That, right? Okay. So that the postmark would act as a thing of like the time where you've made it. So if there was ever a conjecture about it, like, you know, that cheap way people used to try to do copyrights for themselves, but you don't need to do any of that stuff. It's all just going to come back to law. So as in you're going to have to go, if someone says you've breached my copyright or you think someone else has breached your copyright, you're just going to have to take them to court. There's no way around that. So if they're either no one's going to take someone to court if there's no money in it.
Right.
So, for instance, if let's say I wrote a song, and then, you know, 6 months later, a famous artist puts out that same song, and I'm like, hang on a minute, that's my song. You've actually taken my song, and they're generating a lot of money from it. Well, there's money in me pursuing my claim to that song, because especially if I can prove that I've written that song,
sure,
then I could go after that. But if you, or I don't know, if someone who, like, if there's no money in it, no one's going to pursue, like, have money to pursue other people who are, there's no, if they're saying, does that make sense? Like, you can send them a cease and desist letter, but you're not going to take if they're not profiting off your work, because you're going to
no, it'd be like if someone robbed one of my songs and went to #1, I'd be celebrating. I wouldn't be getting mad. I'd be like, that guy owes me a fortune. You know?
Of course, you know that there's money there to be had. And hopefully they won't be that stupid to do that.
Yeah, that's cool. No, the only reason I ask is, like, obviously I have all my songs are recorded, you know, at least to a certain level. They're on the computer. I have the lyrics written. I have the chord sheets, everything. It's all there. Just that you can't, I don't know how far that goes in a court of law, because whether you prove, it's difficult to prove that that was written at a certain time, you know, before that song came out. You know what I mean? Like
that's where you've got your evidence. So they can actually dig up a lot of forensic evidence on computers and stuff about, like, trailing back when things were done. Right. So if you recorded something on your phone, there's a digital signature that's going to be associated even with that iPhone recording that will never be able to be changed.
Okay. So you can't tamper that. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think you can. I mean, you got to think about, like, let's say it was someone like Ed Sheeran, like, he's got bazillions of dollars and you've got no dollars. Yeah. I'm not saying you've got no money, but I wouldn't have the money to go to court against him.
You're not far off.
I thought he was stealing my songs or something. So sometimes it does come down to who's got the most money. And but I mean, in this day and age, it'd have to be, like, I don't know, that for someone to steal your whole song, it's really going to be like, a lot of people think, oh, you've stolen my chords riff thing or something, like a part of the song. And then that's where, like, I don't know if you follow those copyright cases with bigger songs where, you know, there's two similar things and, like, one has to give the other money because they are similar, but and sometimes I worry with people coming after the song, not personally my songs, but when I'm writing songs, I do think of that sometimes. If I've used something as an influence, is that song too similar to something? And I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but you might write a song and you think, fuck, that's so good, I must have heard that before. So I just play it into Shazam and see if it is a song, because sometimes it's so familiar.
Right.
For some reason, it's a weird thing, but even though the song's only just come to you, you think, oh, that sounds too good sometimes. And you think it must already be a song.
Right.
So I just sometimes test that out with Shazam. If that ever happens to you, and this is very similar to another song.
Has it ever returned something?
No.
On Shazam? No, okay, that's good. Yeah, I'd be surprised.
Yeah, I'd be surprised too. I think
because even if you've got maybe the melody is similar, more than likely, or more often than not, the beat is going to be different. There's going to be something very different in the song. The lyrics are going to be different, unless you're, like, completely plagiarizing a song. Like, so there's so many variables, you know, in the song, that it's unlikely. It's I would say it's impossible for two people to write the same song. I would say that's impossible, like, without ever hearing the other, you know. To two people independently write the same song. Yeah, it's got to be impossible.
But how strange is it when you think about, where do these ideas come from? This is probably getting a bit woo-woo now. But I was listening to someone talk about this in an entrepreneurial sense today, right? I can't even remember who it was, but they were saying, like, you know, and this can happen with a song sometimes too. Like, you know, when an idea comes to you and you don't execute that idea, and 6 months might go past, and then you're like, oh, someone else is doing that same idea that I had. Right. Like that's happened to me a lot. Another company's doing the thing I thought of, making.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I thought of Uber. I thought of Uber.
Yeah.
Before Uber.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right? And so there's this guy was saying, you know, where are these ideas coming from? Like some universal source.
Yeah. Right.
If you don't act on that, the idea is still floating out there, and it's just a matter of time before someone else with the resource to do it or the balls to do it or whatever taps into that.
Yeah.
So
I
wonder if that sometimes happens with songs as well.
Good point. I never thought of it that way. Yeah. But I'm sure you're right. Yeah.
I mean, no one else can write.
Possible.
I don't think they can write a song like you would, because you've got your own personal experience, right?
Well, the same goes for the entrepreneurial idea, the business idea. No one's going to put the business together in the same way as you will, you know? Like if I had tried to do Uber, I wouldn't have done Uber, you know, but it would have been a different version anyway. It would have ended up being, you know, quite different, I would say. So it's probably the same. Like you're a songwriter, I'm a songwriter, but you're a different songwriter than I am. So you're going to tap into something different than me, you know? I think that's how it is.
I think so too. But sometimes, I mean, I've never heard a song and thought, oh, that's a song I thought I'd write.
Right. Okay.
It's never happened. Like I've never, and I've never heard anyone else say that.
Have you ever had, I'm sure you've had this though, and I definitely have had it, where you hear a song and you go, oh, that's so close. It's not close. Well, it's kind of my style, but I really wish I'd thought of that. I really wish I'd written that song, you know? I suppose maybe we've all had that.
Yeah, sometimes. I don't know. Maybe. I mean, you admire someone and you sometimes think, wow, there's just something so great about their voice that you wish you had, or their something. Yeah. I don't know. I get that, but I don't know. I've never thought, oh, I wish I'd, because to me the song has to come from you, and I never wished I'd written someone else's song.
All right.
I can imagine that.
So it's just me then. Just me.
Probably. It's probably others. Yeah. Put it in the comments below if that's you. If you're a songwriter listening to this interview and that's ever happened to you. I'm sure it does happen. It's just it's never happened to me. So interesting. Sorry, I thought you were going to say something.
Yeah, no, but I have obviously these songs that maybe that I've wanted to write. I mean, they have ultimately influenced me in a way where I'll come up with, it happened recently actually, where I'll come up with something that is based off it, like obviously completely different song, but maybe using the same tempo, few of the same ideas. And for me that's almost more satisfying when you start out with an intent to write something along the lines of, and then just producing something based on that. Whether it works or not is not that important. But in terms of maybe practicing your songwriting, start out with an intent to write something based off of something and see what happens, you know?
Yeah.
So that happened to me quite recently.
Yeah. And I think that's something that producers do a lot. Like they like that, because I didn't think like that until I started to work with the guy that's producing my stuff. And he would say to me, like, I'll get my guitar, I'll write the song and sing along, and that's it. And I'm just like, well, the rest of the band can just play the drums and the bass and the keyboard. And at that point I was playing with a band and they were coming up with those parts. And I was just letting them do what they wanted to do, like come up with the parts, which is great.
Yeah.
But then he sort of showed me, he's like, if you actually design what parts they're going to play, or whoever, they don't even have to play the parts. He was like, he told me get session musos to play the parts, so it's better. It's quality. And that's what I ended up doing. And
so you will write the other parts, yeah? Well,
he helps me do that. I'm and I've been learning this process. So what I've done with him is I've done 10 songs. I made a 10-song album.
Okay.
And
great.
in the process of making that 10-song album, the marketing guy that I'm working with said to me, what would be great when you have that 10-song album, when people go to buy that album, is a second album.
Right. Yeah.
I was like, oh, it's just easy to make a second album, isn't it? Not really. So I started making the second album, and in the process, I'm marketing these songs to people on my YouTube and my Facebook and all that sort of stuff, right? And one of the songs that I did on there had a very do you know Portishead?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that kind
not
of
very
vibe. Well, that vibe, like if you
that.
just imagine that London grammar kind of vibe, right? And the other ones had more of a passenger kind of vibe and a folky vibe.
Okay. Yeah.
And they had some of them had that down tempo electronic sort of vibe, and some of them had the folky vibe, but most of them had the folky vibe on this album. And in the meantime, everyone seems to love this Portishead style down tempo electronics.
Right. Yeah,
and I haven't released the album yet, so I'm about to finish the second album, which will actually be the first album. So I'm trying to finish that now. I've got like a booking tomorrow to do some vocals and another booking in a few weeks to finish that. So I really want to put that out at the end of this year. Yeah. Great. And that'll be my first album. But the second album's already done. Like the CDs are made, everything's done. But I'm just going to put that off being out until a few months or whatever I feel down the track.
Yeah.
So there will be 2 albums pretty quickly, but I've had to sort of keep all my people happy all this time by giving them different singles on Spotify. So I've already pushed out, I think I've pushed out 9 singles on Spotify now.
Okay.
Yeah. And so getting back to that idea that you were saying about the songs, is that something that I didn't know anything about how to do this stuff. I've just learned it as I've been going along. And the producer that I was using, he said to me, oh, what's your references for this song? And I was like, what does that mean? Like, I didn't even know what he was meaning. Yeah. And he goes, oh, what do you want it to sound like? And I was like, just how I played it on my guitar. Like I didn't know. And that's how he's come up with a lot of ideas. He said to me, oh, with that first song, he said, are you open to ideas? I was like, yeah. And he's like, well, I feel like it could be like this. He goes, what about this? And he brought out this Rhodes piano sound and this other thing. And then I was like, oh, that's so cool. And because then my audiences seem to have liked that. Yeah. The people that have come to my audience have, more and more people have come because of that song and that style. So then I've made more songs in that style. And now I make a song, I do what you just said, where you kind of go, okay, here's a reference. Like I might hear a Fleetwood Mac song and I think I want the drums to be similar to this Fleetwood Mac song and vocals to be like this from another song. And that's good because then the people who are helping you make the song can follow along with that rather than it just being some esoteric thing of like, I just want the songs to sound good. You don't really know what
no, it's great. Like. And it sounds like you have a winning formula there with whoever you're collaborating with. Like for me, it took the longest time to find someone that got my music and wanted to work with me, Yeah. So and ultimately the guy I recorded my album with turned out to be a great producer. We're on the same page. Took a listen to my stuff and just brought it to the next level. Just added stuff in there that I don't know how to do, that I really like, and just brought it all together in a way that I'm really happy with. But if you can collaborate in that way, and you're sharing ideas, and you get more inspiration back off them, and it gives you more idea and new ideas for your next song, that's even better.
Yeah, it's good.
It's like a virtuous cycle.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I think it's good if you, I feel like I've just been fortunate to find the right people and not have too much dicking around. Mm-hmm. That stuff really, I feel like ruins your creativity.
Yeah.
I've heard people with their various stories. Oh, I got burnt from this, or I got this happened and I got backstabbed and all this. And that's never happened to me. I've had a great experience, which has been awesome.
That's great. That's about how you're vibing though, isn't it?
Maybe. I don't take people's bullshit. I don't put up people's madness.
Right. Well, that's good. Set boundaries,
Yeah.
And but I guess you yeah, you attract. I mean, depending where you're vibing at, you attract certain people. You know,
Mm.
so the fact that you've attracted good people, that that's good for you.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And I look, I
Yeah.
think if your music's got sometimes, well, I didn't realize this because I was so new in starting it. I didn't even realize that the songs were good. Like, it wasn't
Right.
like I was just like, are these any good? Like, is this a good song?
Yeah, sure.
Like,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
it's good if you've got someone who will tell you the truth and say this is a good song and this isn't a good song, or like,
Mm.
they're not just blowing smoke up your backside to take your
Hmm.
money, telling you you've got good songs when you don't.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
better off not working on those ones that aren't good ones and spending that time and money working on the other ones that are the good songs.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Trust is key. And if you can find someone that's willing to work with you on that level, then that's great. I mean, it's probably, I don't know, but it's um, I don't know how common or how rare that is in the music industry, because you know, I don't personally trust the mainstream, the big record labels. Be very difficult for me to trust a label like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just from my own knowledge, not my own experience, but from learning about what happened to bands in the past and how they got screwed.
Yeah.
So I've never been interested in making it in a mainstream way. Not anymore. At one time, yeah, right. But if that had ever happened to me, it didn't happen. But if it had ever, becoming a rock star in my 20s definitely wouldn't have ended very well for me.
Yeah.
Definitely. With all the pressures and all the temptations, I guess, that wouldn't have ended well for me. So this way is better. I'm definitely, I need to kick myself in the backside sometimes to get my music out there. But I'd rather make it this way independently than any other way, because when you sign with a big label, like you're giving away more than you realize. You're always giving away more than you realize, and it's a much bigger commitment for these artists, and I mean, a lot of them are just seeing the lifestyle and the the dollar signs, and the fame.
Yeah.
But they don't realize what it's going to cost them. And then suddenly they're being forced to write music that they never intended to write, and they have no passion for, and they've also got to they have these things, the 360 deals they have now. When you sign with like a major label, everything, they own a piece of everything you put out, including your merch and everything like that.
Yeah, right.
So it's everything.
Because they're struggling to make money. They can't make money off selling fees like they used to.
That's
true. Make that much money off streaming either. So yeah, like I don't know if you're aware that, but most places that record labels that want to break a new artist, they have to spend like $1 million just getting them on the radio.
Wow.
Like they're paying. I know this from artists that have been in that industry that have told me that they have to pay. They pay the radio station. So there's a reason why you hear 10 Ed Sheeran songs a day on the major station. Because at the start of that, they were like, oh, here's an artist. We like this artist. We're going to break this artist. They pay the radio stations to play them, and then they recoup that royalty money, which doesn't go directly to the artist. Now it's going to the record company who's billions of dollars to get them to be played over and over and over. But they have to. The reason why people like those songs is because they've heard them so much.
Sure, yeah.
I've only heard because they've got the money to pay them to be played a lot.
To do it.
But even the average person doesn't realize they're being conned. Like all the music you're hearing on the radio, unless it's an independent radio station, it's all curated in some way and cultivated in some way for, And look,
they don't really exist so much anymore, those. Yeah. Those indie, well, not that I am aware of. Well, there used to be pirate radio stations. Maybe I'm showing my age now, but
do you guys have
yeah,
them?
for me,
we have them in Australia, like independent radio.
Okay, not that I'm aware of here. No, I don't think it's. I can't. I just can't do radio anymore. The music's so bad, and there's so many commercials. I don't deal with it anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not a fanboy anymore. I don't like follow bands so much as I used to. You know, more interested in writing my own stuff, and like you said, writing the music that I want to hear.
Yeah.
You know, which means I've fallen behind a little bit in terms of what's out there, but you know,
that doesn't. I don't think that matters. I mean, that doesn't show up. Your music sounds great. Like it's got its niche market.
Nice.
Like,
thank you.
I mean, just because it reminds me of the Jam doesn't mean it's an old style. Like it's a great style.
Right.
I like that style.
Cool. Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Thanks. Yeah.
I'm sure there's lots of other people.
That was actually. Yeah. Actually, my producer said the same thing. He was like, "Yeah, it sounds a bit like the Jam." Yeah.
Yeah. As soon as I heard it, I was like, "Truck stop." Da, da, ba, 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 ba. I was like, "Yeah, I don't even know if that's the right lyrics." That's
awesome.
Entertainment. Like that's what I heard. That's
right.
Yeah. I mean, I used to really like Stone Roses. I can hear a bit of that in your music, like.
Oh, cool. Oh, nice.
That kind of style.
I wouldn't have thought that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just because of the accent. For me, like as an Australian listening to it, it's a bit more English-y.
Okay. Yeah, sure. I think some of what I write is a little bit like the Ramones.
Yeah.
You know?
There's that there. Yeah.
And I think I love their stuff. And I think if I was going to emulate anyone, it would be their music. If I could, you know, if I had to pick, well, just because, I'd love to be, I'd like to write a bit more like Kings of Leon and Arctic Monkeys.
Yep.
I just can't do it, you know. I'd probably have to develop it a bit more as a songwriter and as a musician more so than anything, to write in that sort of genre. But the Ramones were very much about, look, we're not the best musicians in the world. We just write great songs and we don't fuck around. Sorry, don't mean to curse. Right. You can edit that out.
I've sworn 3 times already.
Right. Yeah. So we don't want to fuck around. We just want to write good songs, and our songs are done in 3 minutes. Bang! It's out. It's done, and we're here to have a good time. And it's just about the songs, man. You know. And they when they came out, it was a time where I think it was must have been the 70s, but they were like the music. I mean, they said the Beatles were a big influence on them, because the Beatles just wrote songs, you know, whereas a lot of bands at the time were like they'd have solos and they'd have virtuoso musicians that would go on or like a rant for about 7 or 8 minutes, you know.
Yeah.
And they were like, no. That's not us, and that's not what we want to do. For us, it's just all about the songs, like just something catchy. And I've always set out to write something, you know, that's catchy and you know, hopefully fairly reasonably melodic, and that sort of makes sense to the ear. And you know, something that lifts the vibe. That's kind of where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
You know, and with a bit of an edge as well. You know, I want something with a bit of an edge.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm looking for.
All right. So where can people find your music, Darragh?
Well, you can check out the website. It's Pyrolite. You can see the name on the screen, pyrolitemusic.com, pyrolitemusic.com. And on Facebook, it's Pyrolite Music. And
I'll put all your links below so people can just click on those things. But if they're just listening on Spotify or Apple, sometimes it's hard to find those links. So Pyro, Pyrolite.
That's right.
Yep. .com. And so you've got an album there.
No, pyrolitemusic.com.
Oh, sorry, pyrolitemusic.com.
Music.com. Pyrolite was taken. Pyrolite.
Okay, that's all good. What's the inspiration behind your name? of them?
That's hard to say. Well, I know I was looking for a band name. I had formed a band a few years ago and trying to come up with a band name, and I came up with all sorts of things that were okay. And then that just came to me one day, and I was in nature actually at the time, and it just came to me, Pyrolite, and I was like, oh, I just liked how it sounded. So I said, oh, we'll go with that. And it turns out it means something. I think it's like a type of rock.
Oh yeah.
That I knew.
Yep.
Yeah.
Gemstone.
I didn't know about that. But I write kind of rock music anyway, so it kind of fits. So, but that's not where it came from. It just, the word came to me, or the name came to me.
Yeah, cool.
So that's it. So just roll with it.
Awesome. So great to talk to you and share.
Great, yeah, likewise.
With everyone. So people can check out your website, and you've got your album there, and there's little previews they can do of the songs on there. You've got some singles they can see on Facebook. Is that right? Like, they can hear your music.
Yeah.
There. You're not on Spotify at the moment, but if you are, we'll put that link there.
Yeah, I will be putting stuff on Spotify soon. Yeah.
Okay.
And there might be one or two singles on Spotify. Just look under Pyrolite.
Okay.
Yeah, I did put them on a couple of years ago, but my music has come a long way since then. So it's about time to refresh my Spotify presence.
It's evolved.
Yeah, it's evolved. But you can find a few things on YouTube as well.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, there's a few singles on YouTube. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, if you're still watching the show now, and you're still here after an hour and a half of us talking, thank you so much for watching, and make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already on the YouTube, so you don't miss an episode. And if you're watching or listening on Spotify or Apple, it really helps us if you leave a review on there, and that helps people to find us, because it helps if you just rate the show. So that'd be awesome if you could do that. Really helps support the Good Vibes show. And you can support Darragh's music by checking out his album on his website. Go to his Facebook page, follow his music. If you like the Ramones, if you like the Jam, you'll love his music, and you can discover something new. So thank you so much for sharing everything about your songwriting process and your inspiration for writing music. It's really been awesome to chat to you.
My pleasure, Marie. Thanks for having me. It's been great.
Awesome. No worries. Thank you.